Hey, can everyone hear us? Apparently, that's really loud. All right.
Welcome. $55,000. I'm going to let that number sink in for a moment. That is the cost per year per inmate in the New Jersey prison system. For a bit of context, it costs $5,000 more than a Princeton education annually in the same state. Talk about sticker shock. We are here today to talk about a new vision for incarceration, for what it might look like to take low-level offenders out of brick and mortar institutions and consider putting them back into the community. So I'll start with a few statistics about the United States prison system. We have over 2 million offenders behind bars, 60% of whom were incarcerated for low-level offenses, nonviolent. The US accounts for 25% of the world's population, of the prison population, but just 5% of the overall population. And our facilities are overcrowded. How much does it cost? So New Jersey isn't alone in its high expenditures. Prisons account for over $50 billion annually across the US. This represents a 300% increase in spending. It's gotten so bad that the Supreme Court has had to intervene. In the state of California, the Supreme Court said facilities were so overcrowded that they were in violation of the Cruel and Unusual Punishment Clause of the US Constitution. And the state is currently being forced to release prisoners either back into society or outsource their prisoners. Even with all of these expenses, we're not really getting a great return on our investment. The odds are 50-50 that a released prisoner will reoffend within 3 years.
So what would it take to make none of those stats true? That's been what we've been looking at for the last year and a half. Kara and I have been asked to re-envision what the US prison system could look like using emerging trends and technologies, some that are already out there today and just not being used effectively, to lower costs, improve outcomes, and hopefully keep society safer. What would that look like? We imagined using things like predictive and geospatial analytics, gamification and behavior modification, and the smart mobile capabilities that all of us have on our phones today to create a new ecosystem, to reimagine the US prison system in a way that keeps people safer and stops creating worse prisoners than we put in the first place. That's what we're here to describe to you today. That's the future we're here to envision.
Okay, so let's pretend my name is Frank.
You look like a Frank.
Thanks, Alan. Let's pretend my name is Frank and I have some substance abuse issues and I have been abusing alcohol and drugs and I finally got caught by the heavy hand of the law. Let's say I'm an offender in this new form of virtual incarceration. What might that look like as I'm being sentenced? So this here is what we envision as a sort of dynamic risk assessment tool that a judge, a jury, or a parole board may have access to, which considers some of my background information. What did I do? What crime did I commit? What are my demographics and the like? And then it spits out a sort of dynamic assessment profile that considers those factors as well as my propensity for future offenses. And it also customizes a sentence that fits my needs. So because I struggle with alcohol and drug abuse, the system is going to certainly be monitoring me for those things. It's going to be alerting me to instances of where I might be in danger of re-abusing or re-offending. And it's going to allow my parole officer more insights into actually what I need as opposed to just a one-size-fits-all.
Let's discuss a few concepts. Peer mentorship and support. The ability to do real-time, face-to-face communication over far distances. Testing to see whether I'm under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Doing skills and jobs training. What do these things have in common? Well, one, they're all things I can pull my iPhone out today and do right from the palm of my hand. They also happen to all be elements of successful programs somewhere out there in the world that help prevent recidivism. Now, what don't they have in common? Not a single one is being used today in that manner on a large scale to help reform the prison system in the United States. Furthermore, what solutions are out there, or pockets of progress, they're small. They're in one community, they're in one state. They're being done by a small, passionate group of individuals who've come up with a solution that works, but struggle to scale it or integrate it with other solutions. We think the power of mobile technology, using smart mobile in addition to electronic monitoring and bracelets that we have today, could actually scale the most successful interventions that exist in these programs and pockets of progress, and also integrate them with one another. So imagine Frank. He's gone through the risk assessment. Frank has a specific set of needs and specific set of programs that align to those needs. But instead of having to drive across a 50-mile radius to try and access all the individual services he might need, instead he can access all of them with a touch of a button. He can check in with his parole officer via FaceTime. He can use an app like Breathalyze to assess whether he's under the influence. He can do skills training. He can get an employer or get access to his employer at the touch of a button. And all of these things are integrated via gamification. The prison population is naturally prone to seek instant gratification, even more than the general population. However, when we talk to folks who work every day with prisoners, a lot of the times folks on parole or released from prison fail to keep with their program. It's because they don't really see a point. You're given a list of things you're supposed to do, but you're not really sure why you're doing all of them together or what's more important. Instead, imagine seeing a bar that represents your progress, like a video game. If you keep your job for 6 months, you get 10 points. If you make all your counseling meetings for 8 weeks, you get 10 more points. When you get to 50 points, your curfew is extended an hour, or your range of movement is extended. This immediate gratification can incentivize the pro-social behavior necessary to help integrate prisoners back into society and not have them reoffend.
So this is my smart mobile device. I am out in the community, I am completing my sentence, and I have some restrictions on my movement, as you might imagine. It's probably not a great idea if I'm allowed to go into a bar or a known sort of drug dealing area. And so what you have here is an alert popping up telling me, Frank, that I've entered a zone that I should not be in, that would be dangerous for me and might jeopardize my sentence back into the community. This here is what my parole advisor or case manager may see. I'm not alone in this system. I'm not just released out into the community with an ankle bracelet and a smartphone device. I actually have someone that's keeping tabs on my movement and my progress through the system. And so this is a dashboard that really, to Alan's point, integrates some of the things that people are already comfortable with, that are already using. My parole advisor has access to what I'm doing as well as what the other parolees under his or her purview are doing, and can see, much like Facebook with a scrolling feed, activities and progress. On the right here, can see zones of movement and where in real-time location those folks are. To be able to alert them, like you just saw, when I, Frank, got the notification, perhaps it was my case manager pushing that through, or perhaps it was actually the system being able to alert ongoing in real time what's happening.
So what Kara's talking about is real-time risk analytics and a risk score for all these individuals who were assessed up front as being a good fit for a program like this. All that data is constantly being analyzed and could constantly help inform not just how a case manager manages the different parolees or incarcerees under their purview, but how decision makers allocate money and resources around a community. So imagine all that data feeding up to a next level. There are multiple case managers managing multiple incarcerees in a region. All of that data about where people are, whether they're successful in the program or not, and what resources they have immediate access to is visible to these decision makers. By layering that data in a geospatial way, people can make decisions about, hey, this group is really successful, this group isn't. What's the difference between the two? What resource might they have access to that this group doesn't? And how can we more effectively deploy our money or our resources in the community to help keep the community safer. By looking at data and looking at resources in this geospatial way and in a way that integrates real-time analytics around risk, hopefully we can keep everyone safer, improve outcomes, and reduce costs. None of what we're talking about here is science fiction. The future could be closer than we think because all of these applications are being used successfully somewhere across society. In some cases, it's in other industries, where Foursquare is using point systems to make us check into our favorite restaurant or bar. In other cases, they're being used in the prison system successfully, but they're not being scaled because they're too costly or they're geographically restricted. We think that real innovation doesn't always have to come from invention. Rather, it can come from looking across industries at solutions that you may not think are relevant to your problem and being a little bold in how you apply them. And in this way, we believe we can make the future more of a reality today. Thank you.